Hey, it's your favorite. I'm back to ramble again. Yeah. Your favorite gay queer is here to ramble about queer topics. I'm going to get into the oppression Olympics in the queer community, the validity Olympics, hyperinvisibility versus invisibility, the debate surrounding the legality of my existence. I cover like 4 different topics as I think, and these are my organized ramblings, because yeah, this is open discussion, but if you're gonna be disrespectful, say goodbye to your commenting privileges. Be civil. Thank you! Validity Olympics in the queer community needs to stop. Yes. Trans men can use the lesbian label. Especially if they're using it as a way, if they're holding on to that label like an identity. Because lesbian is one of those terms where it's an identity. It's not just a label to some people. Like, they're still holding space for their past before they came out. I think when people judge the validity of that, they don't see that. And we're wasting time and energy and effort on the validity Olympics. Like, yes, he, him lesbians are valid. If we add rules to these labels and say yada yada yada, we're just discriminating ourselves. The point of the queer community is to take all the people excluded by the rest of our regular society and allow us to come together and find community. That's the entire point. No, we're not accepting pedophiles. We are accepting of all people. Like, saying, oh, aroace, the aroace spectrum, saying people on the aroace spectrum aren't queer, even if they're straight and cisgender, is harmful, because the rest of the cisgender, straight, heterosexual society that we live in isn't open to them. It's not. The queer community is the door that people run to when all the doors have been shut in their face. It's more harm than good playing the validity Olympics when there is legislature actively being written to erase the protections and rights that we have fought hard for. The most important thing is looking and seeing the entire picture instead of focusing on who's valid and who's not. That is just one way to divide us. And the algorithm pushes this, because why wouldn't it push this? I don't think that's a common talking point. Like, I see this in the comment section, but not everybody thinks deep enough into the comment section. What was that? But we live in a transphobic society. I do think that we are more accepting to people having different sexualities, but gender identity is the biggest hitch in the road there. I don't know why. Because, especially even in the queer community, because there's no LGB without the T. Who threw the first brick at Stonewall? I'm pretty sure it was Marsha P. Johnson. Okay? Some texts say that she was a drag queen. Some texts say that she was a trans woman. Because back then, we don't have the terminology we do now. Like, things like that. But when you look for pride is choosing to be yourself when every other force in the world is telling you not to be. That is why we have pride. Pride was a riot. It's not rainbow capitalism. It was a riot. Still is. When people are going missing and being murdered. The thing is, yes, trans women are very vulnerable and at high risk, but being hyper visible is just as bad as being invisible. It's 2 sides of the same coin. Because every argument against trans women dies when you bring up trans men. Because the government wants to say, well, trans women are just male perverts trying to get in the women's restroom. You don't have to dress up as a woman to get into the women's restroom if you're a man wanting to creep. You can just go in there and just not get caught, because they don't need to do all that. We live in a patriarchal society. That's not even needed. It's just an argument against progress and accepting people as they are. I don't get why we're doing that. Yeah. Also, you don't have the right to dictate what labels a person uses either. I don't know why anybody would think that. But yeah. Yeah. Another thing I want to bring up is, I've seen some people talking about not being viewed as butch enough. Butch and femme in the lesbian community are labels with a historical and political meaning. Femme lesbians historically were the lesbians who could hide in with the non-queer crowd, and, you know, they could emerge in and fight from within to protect their, you know, not so invisible counterparts. That was the thing. Being a femme means you will stand up for others, other women, other queer people, lesbians, whoever, women, non-binary, everybody. Why are we trying to delete trans people from the conversation? Because you delete trans people and you have no representation, because right now the oppression ladder puts just gender identity above sexuality right now. But once they've completely depleted gender diverse people, gender non-conforming people, you're next. The boots you lick will stop you. I don't know why. I'm not even gonna bring up MAGA gays, because I don't think y'all can be saved. You can if you reach deep down into your soul and choose to change for the better, but you gotta be aware and conscious and taking accountability for that. Don't think they are. I think they're going after Daddy Trump. They're a little too busy on that one. I think he likes Biden better. Sorry, boys. And I don't get this whole fantasy of men fixing lesbians, straight men, like trying to get with them and convince them that they don't like women or they do like men. I don't know about that. That and the same thing happens to gay men, but you don't hear about it as much. I had a friend, someone told him, a straight girl told him that she could change him. She could turn him. I don't know. I don't think so. Like, there's just unacceptable behavior. And because these people are not conforming to the norm, they're not part of the status quo, it's justifiable to people to mistreat them, misgender them, deny their identity. Also, some people feel like their trans identity is just inherent. They're not, they don't identify as they are, which, yeah. But some people view their, like, queer terminology as just a label, a way to explain who they are. They don't feel it is that they are that. They feel that just explains who they are. They don't identify with the label, if you know what I mean. Which, it's okay either way. Like, I don't really have a nice, easy label to put on my gender identity that I identify with, like being a lesbian. Right now, I'm just flitting through terms, trying to, because being non-binary, it's not just like a delegated third gender, where the only pronouns you can use are they, them, or something. Like, you can full-on use she, her, he, him, any combination, or any of those. I don't think that's the common view of being non-binary. Or they expect people, or like the expectation that you're going to be androgynous and you can't be femme or masc. Like, I'm going to get misgendered anyway. I think that is something that a lot of non-binary people have come to terms with, so they do dress how they want. But even if they are androgynous, people still misgender them. So, unless the androgyny is genuinely, like, affirming to you, or you just, that's the style you like, I wouldn't push yourself to change just to get social affirmation, because it will come from the right people. Yeah. And there's a lot of, like, terms and whatnot. You know, you can have conflicting labels. I don't know if you knew that, but you can have as many labels that fit you. Like, just because you're not the most oppressed level of queer does not mean you aren't oppressed and you aren't queer. You are queer enough. You are butch enough. You are enough that you differentiate from the norm and face discrimination, even if you haven't faced it publicly because it's not obvious that you're out. You're not out of the closet, you're closeted. It doesn't matter. You're still queer. At some point, you will experience discrimination. When who you are as a person is being debated as a political topic, it's kind of like, huh. So my right to exist is up for the vote? Yeah. And sure, you can minimize being legally married to a piece of paper, but that doesn't debate the fact that it has meaning to some. It is of value. You can view it that your love is enough, but I don't think love is enough. I think love is a major component, but I think having being socially equal, I'd say, I kind of think, social equality, welfare equity. That is kind of my viewpoint. I do, in the general view equity over equality, but equality functions when we have a society that's deconstructed oppression. We don't. So, equity it is. You know? That's all I'm putting in this video, because I have so many divulging topics I can talk about for, like, hours on end. But yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening. I never shut up. And I don't have a script. I just sit in the mirror and talk to myself until I know a general brief of what I'm gonna say. Yeah. And then I edit this for comedic purposes. Because, yeah, this is heavy discussion. Not heavy, but it's somewhere in there. And to Pinterest, I think, for all these micro labels I found. I'm kind of like this label maker for my queer friends. Actually, for my friends in general, because they're all queer. I'm kind of like a label maker. I'm like, oh, you're describing that? Huh, I think I saw this micro label on Pinterest a few weeks ago. Sounds like you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I just love being the gender identity matcher. But I can't match myself. That's my thing. Like, I can describe someone else's emotion in great detail, but I can't describe my own. I was put on this earth to tell people how it should be. I'm joking. But I was put on this earth to solve problems. I don't know what else I would do if not solve problems. Not my own, because I don't know how to solve those. I can't do that. My talents are not for me, they are for others. In that aspect.